Georgia painted the walls of Mercedes-Benz Stadium with the blood of Dabo Swinney and the whole entire Clemson football team. And, I thought Clemson could have covered that 13 and a half. I thought Clemson was going to be able to give these boys a dogfight. I thought the offense was going to be improved. I thought with the fantastic true freshman wide receivers they had, Brian Westcott, TJ Moore, they were going to have a big impact on this game. But not only did we not see them at all, but we didn't see no growth out of this offense. I mean, K. Klubnik still looks like K. Klubnik. I don't know who's worser, him or DJU. They both were in the same quarterback room for Clemson. I mean, Garrett Riley's offense just looks inept. And I don't want to get ahead of myself because they did play Georgia. But Clemson's defense, let's not act like Clemson's defense wasn't getting right with Georgia's offense for the first half. I mean, Clemson's defense was playing out of this world, okay? And Dabo Swinney, after this loss, took accountability. He said, when you lose this bad, it's on the head coach. Yeah, it's all on you. And you would think if you would have utilized the transfer portal, got a couple of transfer offensive linemen, wide receivers to help solve those issues, this game could have been a little bit more closer. But what are your thoughts on this Clemson massacre that they sustained to Georgia? Does it say more about how good Georgia is, or does it show more of how Clemson has just fallen off from the ranks of being an elite program in college football?
It shows that Dabo Swinney is not even a top 25 head coach, and anyone who pretends otherwise is living in fantasy. With the talent they have, the coordinators they have, the assistant coaching hires that they made, they should have played competitively. Because, I mean, Georgia's O-line struggled for the first half. They had their star running back out. And, I mean, yes, Atlanta's technically Georgia home field, even though it's a neutral site. But I mean, come on. What was the final score? Like 34-3 was the final score? I mean, this Clemson used to be that team that had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and epic wide receivers and running backs you could rely on, in addition to a tough defense. What they are now is, I mean, they're kind of like the ACC's Iowa, except I would honestly say even worse, because they, I mean, come on. Because at least Iowa actually uses the portal in a limited supply. I can't even believe I'm saying that. It's sad. It's depressing, really, because Clemson, I mean, look, the ACC's still wide open, so maybe they could win it. But when you lose, like how they did, let me pull up some statistics for all of you who are watching. I mean, it was bad. I was at work in one of my final shifts of my summer job watching this, and my coworkers couldn't even believe their eyes at what are we watching?
I mean, Georgia
Clemson
outgained
ran.
them 447 yards to 188.
Yep. Yes, they did. And Georgia averaged over 8 yards per throw, over 6 yards per carry. Clemson averaged under 5 yards per pass attempt and exactly 2 yards per carry. Those are, as I said earlier, Clemson is somehow even worse than Iowa, because Iowa played Ohio State in 2022 and had 6 turnovers. And if my memory serves me correctly, Ohio State had to try harder to pull away by similar margins at home. Yeah, it's just that you don't have Brent Venables as DC, so you can't win games 17-10 anymore. You can win some, but not all of them. You can't
Yeah,
do that. You
not
can't do
against
what
a
Iowa
behemoth
does.
like Georgia. Like eventually,
No.
you felt this game with it starting off being a defensive slugfest, Clemson being able to come away with some key stops in the red zone. You were like, okay, Clemson's defense definitely is going to be elite this year. They probably could have the second best or the best defense in the SEC, but offensively, you knew the more this offense continued to struggle, eventually Georgia was going to break down the dam. And in the second half, the dam
Yes.
just completely blew up, and Georgia started whamming the ball downfield with the run backs. Once Georgia started to utilize their speed and their talent on the perimeter more, that's really what broke this game wide open. And I think of Clemson as a school that always has been good at recruiting talented skill position players, but you wouldn't have been able to tell that with how they looked in this game. It's like Clemson now is like a old sanctuary of what the previous era of college football used to be about: player development, recruiting, the transfer portal. But now, in today's age in college football, you got to be able to utilize the portal. You got to be able to use NIL to get some of these big name players. And for a school like Clemson, now they're just a name. And their name doesn't hold as much weight now in 2024 as what it used to a few years ago, because you're getting blasted 34-3 against Georgia. I mean, the last time you played them it was 10-3. They're
Yep.
like a relic.
Yeah, they are not an elite program. They do not even have a great head coach. I would I mean, there are so many coaches I would take over Dabo Swinney right now. I can name, just looking at the Big Ten, because that's my area of expertise, I would take Lincoln Riley. I would take Matt Rule. I would take Sharon Moore. I'd take Jonathan Smith, Luke Fickell, Dan Lanning, Ryan Day, of course. I'd take Greg Schiano. I mean, it's 8 in a single conference. And I mean, pardon what I'm thinking here, but the fact that Kirk Ferentz has been more willing to adapt than Dabo Swinney is like,
At least he's trying.
yeah,
Dabo ain't trying at all.
I don't know why. It's just, it's not going to end well. I mean, Clemson, what they'll probably do, because I do think Georgia is that good, is they'll probably finish with a better or similar record compared to last season. But I'm telling you, App State comes to town next weekend. And what did App State do today? They're 1-0. Just want to see. Oh, they beat East Tennessee 38-10. Probably a little bit of a downer performance for their expectations. They're going to play Clemson tight. At least they probably will, given their history of playing North Carolina tight, of beating Texas A&M, of, just a whole bunch of different things. This is a crazy season of college football. But what I will say in the craziness is it's weak enough to where, like with Notre Dame, and I think Miami's going to be this way too, your best teams are going to have even better records than usual because they're going to sift through the chaos effortlessly. Like, who's stopping Notre Dame? Who's stopping Miami? I mean, I thought preseason that maybe Florida State or even Virginia Tech might stop Miami regardless of Cristobal. The only person who can stop Miami is themselves. It's the same thing with Notre Dame. It's the same thing with, I would say, Georgia or Alabama. I mean, I know Texas, we'll see how the SEC pans out. It's easily the best conference in the nation right now. The only, like in the Big Ten, no Big Ten team looked like a classic elite team. Ohio State looked sluggish against Akron. Michigan looked, just not even close to national title caliber against Fresno State. Neither did Oregon. And Penn State, while I think they showed like the highest possible ceiling because they played the best team, and when they were on against West Virginia, they still had stalled drives. And when they weren't explosive, they couldn't get much going, which is a question of consistency. And that's important in the SEC or the Big Ten. So I didn't exactly know where I was going with all this. I guess I went on a little tangent there, but I mean, Clemson is just so far behind everyone else. And if you put them in the SEC right now, 6-6, 7-5, maybe even worse,
Maybe
you
5
put
to
them in the
7.
you put them in the Big Ten and you give them like Purdue's schedule, same thing. give them Rutgers' schedule, and maybe they go 9-3, 10-2. Maybe they win at all their other games, but I mean, it's just an atrocity.